Like in Gaza?
Can you off?
Hey, get off!
Go away.
Well, you yell how many times?
Right here.
Why are you disrupting the ceremony? Did any of your parents or grandparents serve?
Yes.
They must be proud of you today.
Sure.
We should appreciate this country. I don't say that Canada is perfect. No, Canada is not a perfect country, but it is one of the greatest countries on the earth. Still, we have some level of freedom and safety. If you cannot pay tribute and respect to those who sacrificed their lives and they fought against communism, against Nazism, against Taliban in Afghanistan, just show some respect.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in downtown Toronto. And folks, I'm at the Cenotaph at Old City Hall. In about 1 hour, it will be the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. And my camerawoman Avery and I are here for two reasons. One is to pay our respects to the veterans and those who made the ultimate sacrifice for the last 150 years in various conflicts and wars. The other reason is a little more ominous. The rumor mill has been churning the last several days that the pro-Hamas demonstrators are going to crash this ceremony. As you know, they have become more and more emboldened thanks to politicians turning a blind eye, thanks to law enforcement not enforcing the law. And we just wonder, will they do this ultimate act of audacity, actually crashing the ceremony? Now, by the way, folks, that would not be a precedent. Back in 2012, our friend at the Toronto Sun, Joe Warmington, talked about, if you can imagine, a pro-Taliban protester crashing the ceremony. And this is what this person had to say. Her name, by the way, is Suraya Sahar. And she said in a statement, quote, "I cannot and will not be silent in a ceremony used to glorify Canada's mission in Afghanistan, where many of my fellow Afghans were detained, tortured, and killed because of the Canadian military," end quote. And she also stated that there is no honor in Remembrance Day, and furthermore said, quote, "As an Afghan Canadian, my anger can be justified, but I faced enough verbal abuse by racist, angry old white people telling me to go back to my country and that the Canadian military should kill more Afghans." Well, it's like I said, folks, it's just unbelievable. A pro-Taliban person crashing a Remembrance Day ceremony. Then again, maybe if the pro-Hamas people show up, perhaps Sahar wasn't a crank, but simply someone ahead of the curve, especially in Blackface's Canada, where we dispense 8-figure checks to Islamist terrorists for, well, suffering hurt feelings. And some other observations, if I may, on this Remembrance Day 2023. What we have seen is that Don Cherry's rant from 4 years ago, you know, the rant that led to that particular Coach's Corner being the last one to air. Well, Don Cherry said nothing wrong. Don Cherry was canceled simply for telling the truth. Here, check it out.
You people love you that come here, whatever it is. You love our way of life. You love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that.
And you know, that's a funny thing. I have noticed in the last several days of November that when I've gone to pro-Hamas demonstrations, I have not seen a single pro-Hamas demonstrator wearing a poppy. Again, proof in the pudding that Don Cherry said nothing wrong. His only sin was telling the truth, as brutal as that truth might be. Presumably, it was the pro-Hamas types that vandalized the 48th Highlanders War Memorial. That's the one that stands on the north lawn of Queen's Park. Somebody had written Palestine on that war monument. Just absolutely despicable. And get this, later today, the pro-Hamas types are having their own Remembrance Day, a Remembrance Day for the martyrs of Gaza. And what is outrageous about that? Check out this image. This is how they've been advertising it on social media. They have actually co-opted the poppy. That is equal parts disgraceful and disrespectful, but what would you expect from people who in the last several weeks have been chanting death to the Jews and to wipe Israel off the face of the earth? In any event, in less than an hour, the formal ceremonies are going to take place, and we're just going to stand watch and make sure there's going to be no crashing of this sacred ceremony, and for that matter, no vandalism. Let's see what unfolds in the minutes ahead. Well, folks, I'm with John, and off camera, he told me a story that is absolutely disturbing and downright repugnant. John, you were on a streetcar coming over to the Remembrance Day ceremonies. You decided to ask an individual why he wasn't wearing a poppy on Remembrance Day, and then what happened?
Well, let me just say, David, that I asked this gentleman in a respectful, polite fashion. I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He said, "Sure." I said, "Does the poppy signify something that you don't approve of?" And he said, "No, he just didn't bother having one." And I said, "Well, don't you think it's appropriate to have one?" And then there were 3 young people adjacent to us, and he said to me, "I don't want to hear anything about it." And I'm like, I was not pleased, but I did not speak in an egregious tone of voice or abuse him in any way. It's just a conversation. 3 young people adjacent to us started to verbally assault me for expressing that opinion. They tried to tell me that I needed to shut up and I didn't have the right to speak out and say anything, and that I was somehow assaulting him by questioning him that way. And then eventually they virtually physically assaulted me. One of them took my phone and threw it across the floor of the streetcar. And I mean to say, at that point I was fighting mad, because it's like, what they were saying was completely delusional. It was like, she accused me of being a racist for making a point about talking about Remembrance Day.
A racist? What does race have to do with Remembrance Day?
That's what I was trying to say to her. She was screaming obscenities at me, and I said, this has nothing to do with race. The people who fought and died for our freedoms in the Second World War, they were ostensibly giving their lives to defend the right of people not to have racist ideas enfranchised by the government. And it doesn't mean you can't legislate away that some people may have disingenuous attitudes, but they're entitled to that. The question is, the government can't mandate it, and that's what they fought to defend, and they gave their lives. And these children, they just don't seem to understand that what they're talking about is nonsense.
Now, folks, this is something I don't remember from previous Remembrance Day ceremonies. As you can see, there is a Toronto Fire Department truck parked right across Bay Street. Further down, there is a bus as well. It is completely blocking off access to the cenotaph. I think this is a sign of the times in which we live, wouldn't you say? That if there is some unhinged individual who wanted to more than protest Remembrance Day, i.e. create carnage and death on Remembrance Day, well, this would be the route to drive a vehicle up to the cenotaph, and thankfully there is no chance of that happening, not on this day.
Like in Gaza?
Can you off?
Hey, get off!
Go away.
Well, you know how many times?
Right here.
Why are you disrupting the ceremony?
I have nothing to say to you.
Why do you have no respect? Did any of your parents or grandparents serve?
Yes.
They must be proud of you today.
Sure.
You're not sure?
I said sure.
You're a liar, fucking a liar.
Right now, you have to do it right here, right now.
If you are
Right here,
proud,
right now.
show your face.
Where's
If
it?
you
Do you
are
have a
proud,
copy?
show
Show
your
your
face.
face.
Do you have any
Show
symbols
your
of
face.
Canadian?
Show your face. Show your
Show
face.
your
Show
face
your
anyway.
By the way, ma'am, do you find it ironic? You're not being accosted, you're not being physically assaulted, thank goodness. But if someone goes to a pro-Hamas demonstration they would get assaulted. If someone shows a poster of an Israeli hostage, they would be assaulted. Why the different standard?
They left cancer.
You gonna answer anything?
I just wonder why you that's create a question. They protest us my country twice time. What are you doing for? I better for Chinese Communist Party for once time. What are you doing for? You chose a science, huh? You chose a science. You free what? Where is this country from?
You know
Nobody
what?
knows.
We are proud to stand for those who pay
So am I.
ultimate sacrifice for our freedom and safety in Canada. And I came here as a refugee, and I am proud for what I did today. And I show my face. You are ashamed, and you cover your face.
Well, folks, you never know who you're going to bump into at a Remembrance Day ceremony. I'm with Salman Sima, freedom fighter, ex-Iranian. And Salman, you saw what we encountered during the ceremony. There was a woman who was interrupting it several times with chants of free Palestine. What did you make of that shocking demonstration of disrespect?
So, in 2011, I came here as a refugee. I was in jail in Iran, and by the Ayatollahs, Canada gave me the freedom and safety. Okay, we should appreciate this country. I don't say that Canada is perfect. No, Canada is not a perfect country, but it is one of the greatest countries on the earth. Still, we have some level of freedom and safety. If you cannot pay tribute and respect to those who sacrificed their lives and they fought against communism, against Nazism, against Taliban in Afghanistan, just show some respect. And you know that I am for free Palestine, but from the Hamas terrorists, we saw that Hamas is killing Palestinians. I am for free Iran, I am for free Canada, I am for freedom for all. But everything, every criticism has time and location. And if you choose a Remembrance Day for our veterans, for those who pay ultimate price for your freedom, and just you want to interrupt the ceremony, you are so pity. Let me be clear. Shame on Toronto police as a PR for Hamas sympathizer. We saw that they assaulted people. We saw that they attacked to Aroma Espresso Bar. We saw that they attacked to Cafe Lavender. We saw that they blocked King and Bay. We saw that they blocked Young and Bloor in front of Israeli consulate. Still, Toronto police call it peaceful rally. That's not a peaceful rally. That's a hate rally. And again, it's not just simple hate rally. Trust me, you can see the Hashd Shabi flag, Hezbollah Lebanon flag, you can see Hamas flag, Islamic regime in Iran flag, Taliban flag, Saddam Hussein's picture. These are crime backed by terrorism. It's not just simply a hate crime that somebody mispronounced your gender or whatever. It's not like that. It's backed by foreign actors. Simple investigation, it's gonna show it.
Well, folks, the Remembrance Day ceremony here at Old City Hall in Toronto has wrapped. As always, it was respectful, it was reverent. We only had a few cranks in the crowd. As you saw, there was that woman. I'm assuming she's probably a gender studies grad at U of T. We don't know her name. We can't see her face. I thought COVID was over. She's still wearing a mask. Do you think that might be another reason she's wearing that mask, i.e. she doesn't want to identify herself because she was absolutely disgraceful in terms of interrupting the ceremony with her pro-Hamas propaganda. We also saw someone prior to the ceremony yell, "No justice, no peace." Don't know what his agenda was. There was also another individual prior to the ceremony, thankfully, who was walking throughout the crowd carrying a Quran and saying, I believe the Arabs own this land. Don't know what that means. But you know, again, it's the irony, isn't it? So many thousands of Canadians gave their lives to protect our freedoms and our democracies. And one of those freedoms is the right to protest. And even if you are protesting an insidious position, well, you have the right to do so. I would just say this. On November 11th at 11 a.m., could you just kindly shut your mouth for a few minutes and do your propaganda campaigns at another time? Can you at least show some respect for the Canadians and others who died to give you the rights you enjoy and indeed the rights you abuse? For Rebel News, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. David Menzies for Rebel News here in downtown Toronto. And I got to tell you folks, next March 23rd to 30th to be precise, we are going on a Caribbean cruise. Can you imagine that? And a lot of your favorite rebels will be there, such as Sheila Gunn Reid. We got Alexa Lavoie, the big boss man himself. Of course, he'll be there. Ezra Levant. And how about this? How about this for the cherry on the sundae? Tamara Leach, Canada's #1 freedom fighter. She'll be on that boat too. And look at the itinerary. We're going to be going to Half Moon Cay in the Bahamas, and then we're going to jazz it up in Ocho Rios, Jamaica, and then there's Georgetown in the Cayman Islands, and finally Cozumel, Mexico. Can you imagine that? If you want more details in terms of getting aboard the ship, go to rebelnewscruise.com. That's rebelnewscruise.com. All the details are there, the departure dates, the costs, and you know what? This is not just a fun-filled getaway. This is a way in which Rebel News raises some revenue. Unlike the mainstream media, we don't receive a nickel of government funding, nor would we take it if ever offered. So it's win-win. Enjoy yourself in the Caribbean and Mexico, and also support your favorite online news channel. So that's rebelnewscruise.com. I hope to see you aboard.